The Galactic Council had been fighting the Krixothi Empire for 347 years. 17 species, thousands of worlds, millions of ships, all locked in a brutal stalemate that consumed entire star systems and left nebulae glowing with the radiation of countless battles. Commander Marcus Vale stood on the observation deck of the Council flagship Perseverance, watching another fleet return from the front lines. Half the ships were missing. The ones that remained bore scorch marks and hull breaches that would take months to repair. This was victory, apparently. The Krixothi had been pushed back by 2 light years. At this rate, the war would last another 1,000 years. Marcus was human, and humans were newcomers to the galactic stage. Earth had been contacted only 60 years ago, and humanity had been granted junior membership in the Council almost as an afterthought. Humans contributed soldiers, ships, resources, but never strategy. Never command. The established species had been waging war for millennia. The Varanthi understood naval tactics that predated human civilization. The Kelmorians had strategic databases containing 10,000 years of military theory. The crystalline shards could calculate probability matrices that would make human supercomputers weep. And yet, they were losing. Slowly, inexorably, losing. Marcus studied the tactical displays with growing frustration. The patterns were obvious to him, perhaps too obvious. The Council fought with precision and honor. Every battle was calculated, every move analyzed through countless strategic frameworks. They fought by the rules that had governed galactic warfare for eons. The Krixothi fought by those same rules. They knew every doctrine, every tactical manual, every honor tradition. The war had become a chess match where both sides knew every opening, every gambit, every endgame. Nothing surprised anyone anymore. Commander Vale, Admiral Thexcorin's voice rumbled behind him. The massive Varanthi officer approached, his 6 arms folded in a gesture of respect. Your species has performed admirably in the Battle of the Crimson Nebula. 12 ships lost, but you held the line. We held, Marcus agreed. And tomorrow, we'll fight the same battle somewhere else. And the day after that, and the day after that. The Admiral's sensory stalk stiffened, a sign of offense. You question the wisdom of the Council's strategy? I question whether we have a strategy at all, Marcus said carefully. With respect, Admiral, we're not trying to win. We're trying not to lose. They are the same thing in a war of attrition. No, Marcus said quietly, turning back to the viewport. They're really not. The Admiral departed, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and the endless stars. Somewhere out there, the Krixothi were planning their next move. And somewhere in the Council's vast databases of military theory, there was probably a perfect counter to that move. But Marcus was beginning to suspect that perfection was the problem. Humanity hadn't survived its violent history by being perfect. They'd survived by being unpredictable, adaptable, and occasionally insane. Perhaps that was exactly what this war needed. If only someone would let him prove it. The summons came at 0400 hours, ship time. Marcus dressed quickly, his mind racing through possibilities. Emergency meetings at this hour usually meant disaster, a lost fleet, a fallen world, or worse. The Council chamber was nearly empty. 5 high admirals sat in judgment, their alien features unreadable in the dim light. At the center, Supreme Commander Veltharion of the Kelmorian hierarchy presided, her golden carapace gleaming. Commander Vale, she began, her translated voice carrying an odd harmonic. You have been outspoken regarding our strategic approach. Marcus's heart sank. Here it comes. The reprimand, maybe a demotion. Humans were supposed to be grateful for their seat at the table, not critical of those who'd been fighting for centuries. I have expressed concerns, yes, Supreme Commander. The Council has debated your observations, Veltharion continued. We find them troubling. Yet not without merit. Marcus blinked. That wasn't what he'd expected. Admiral Thexcorin leaned forward. The humans have a saying, insanity is doing the same thing repeatedly and expecting different results. We have been fighting this war with honor and precision for 3 centuries. The results have not changed. The Krixothi adapt to our every strategy, added Admiral Kesmora, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. They know us. They know how we think, how we fight. They have had 300 years to study our methods. So we propose an experiment, Veltharion said. A test of your theory that unpredictability might succeed where precision has failed. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. What kind of test? The outer rim, Thexcorin said gravely. 17 systems we have lost in the past decade. The Council has written them off as strategically insignificant. But they were home to 6 billion souls who are now under Krixothi occupation. We are giving you a fleet, Veltharion continued. Not our finest ships, we cannot spare those. You will have the damaged, the obsolete, the crews that have failed too many times. You will have limited resources and no reinforcements. Your mission is to retake those 17 systems, Kesmora stated. By any means you deem necessary. You will have complete tactical and strategic autonomy. The Council will not interfere or advise. Marcus stared at them. It was a suicide mission dressed up as an opportunity. They were giving him the worst ships, the worst crews, and an impossible objective. When he failed, and they clearly expected him to fail, it would prove that the Council's traditional methods were best. But it was also exactly what he'd wanted. A chance to do things his way. How long do I have? He asked. The Council's standard projection for such an operation would be 8 years, Veltharion said. However, we understand that unconventional approaches may require different timeframes. I'll take 6 months, Marcus said. The chamber fell silent. Several of the admirals made gestures that the translator couldn't process, probably expressions of shock or disbelief. Commander, Thexcorin said carefully, I fought in that region for 30 years. The Krixothi have fortified those systems extensively. A single system might take 6 months to capture through conventional assault. Then it's fortunate I won't be using conventional assault, Marcus replied. Do I have the command or not? Veltharion's carapace rippled, the Kelmorian equivalent of a laugh. You have it, Commander Vale. Prove us wrong. We would very much like to be wrong. As Marcus left the chamber, he allowed himself a small smile. They'd given him broken ships and broken crews because they expected him to fail. They didn't understand that humans had built an empire on broken things. Now he just had to figure out how to win an impossible war in 6 months. No pressure. Marcus's new command was worse than he'd imagined. The shipyard orbiting Nexus Prime looked like a graveyard for failed ambitions. 73 vessels of various classes and species, each bearing the scars of battles lost. He walked through the docking bay of his new flagship, the Defiant, a Varanthi heavy cruiser that had been scheduled for decommissioning. The hull was patched with mismatched plates. The main drive had been replaced twice. The weapons systems were 3 generations out of date. She's not much to look at, a voice said behind him. Marcus turned to find a young woman in a worn uniform, her insignia marking her as a lieutenant commander. She had the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much combat. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, reporting for duty, she said, saluting. I'm your XO, apparently. Apparently? The Council doesn't usually assign humans to human commanders, Jackson explained. I think they're betting we'll fail together. I was court-martialed last year for disobeying orders during the Battle of Meridian Gate. What did you do? Retreated, she said bluntly. Saved 800 lives. Lost a strategically insignificant asteroid base. The Varanthi admiral called it cowardice. I called it math. Marcus smiled. I think we'll get along fine. Show me what we're working with. The briefing room was cramped and the holoprojector flickered, but the data was clear enough. 73 ships, split among 8 species designs. Crews that had been transferred here as punishment, retirement, or last resort. The personnel files read like a catalog of failure: commanders who'd lost battles, pilots who'd cracked under pressure, engineers who'd made costly mistakes. "This is everyone the Council wants to forget," Jackson said. "The broken ones." "Perfect," Marcus said, studying the fleet roster. "The Krixothi have spent 3 centuries learning to fight perfect fleets. They have no data on how to fight a broken one." He pointed to a cluster of small vessels. "These corvettes, they're from 7 different species?" "Yes, sir. None of them can communicate effectively with each other. Their weapons systems are incompatible. Their tactical databases use different strategic frameworks. So they can't coordinate using standard Council protocols." Jackson frowned. "Correct. It's a disaster for conventional operations. Or perfect for unconventional ones," Marcus said. "The Krixothi intercept our communications and predict our moves based on Council doctrine. What if we don't use Council doctrine? What if we can barely coordinate with ourselves?" "Sir, that's chaos," Marcus finished. "Controlled chaos. The Krixothi have mastered order. Let's see how they handle chaos." Over the next 3 weeks, Marcus assembled his command staff. Jackson brought in tactical officers who thought outside the box, usually because they'd been kicked out of the box for insubordination. A shard navigator named Crystalise who'd been demoted for using unsafe jump routes. A Varanthi engineer named Mordex who rebuilt engines using unauthorized modifications. A human fighter pilot named Ryan Torres who'd been grounded for reckless maneuvers that had somehow saved his entire squadron. They were misfits, rebels, and failures. Marcus loved them already. "Here's how this works," Marcus told his assembled officers. "The Council fights by the book. Every tactic, every maneuver, every strategic decision is derived from 10,000 years of doctrine. The Krixothi know that book as well as we do." He tossed a data pad into the recycler. "We're burning the book. From now on, we fight like humans have always fought, dirty, unpredictable, and with no regard for what's supposed to be impossible." "The Council won't like this," someone muttered. "The Council gave us 6 months to retake 17 systems with 73 broken ships," Marcus said. "They're not expecting success. They're expecting a lesson in why their way is the only way. So let's teach them a different lesson." He brought up the star map. "First target, Outpost Meridian. The Krixothi have held it for 8 years. It guards the approach to the entire outer rim. Council doctrine says we'd need 6 months and 100 ships to take it. How long do we have?" Jackson asked. Marcus smiled. 2 weeks. And we're going to take it with 20 ships. The room erupted in protests, but Marcus saw a few smiles too. The kind of smiles that said finally, someone's crazy enough to try something different. Outpost Meridian hung in space like a dark jewel, bristling with weapons platforms and shield generators. Krixothi warships patrolled in perfect geometric patterns, a dance they'd been performing for 8 years without interruption. Marcus watched from the Defiance Bridge as his misfit fleet approached. 20 ships against a fortress that had repelled every assault the Council had thrown at it. By every military doctrine in the galaxy, this was suicide. "All ships, maintain radio silence," Marcus ordered. "Crystalise, are the routes programmed?" The shard navigator's crystalline form pulsed with light, affirmation. "The jump coordinates are irregular, Commander. Some might call them suicidal. Some might call this entire operation suicidal," Jackson muttered. "Status on the Trojan horse. Freighter Prosperity is on approach," reported Torres from the tactical station. "Krixothi are scanning it now." On the view screen, a battered civilian freighter limped toward the outpost, trailing atmosphere and broadcasting distress signals. It was broadcasting in Kelmorian, a merchant ship fleeing combat, requesting emergency docking. "They're buying it," Torres said. "Defense Grid is opening a corridor. Of course they are, Marcus said. Council doctrine says civilian vessels are sacred. Even in war, you don't fire on damaged civilian ships requesting aid. The Krixothi follow the same rules. Sir, what they don't know is that the Prosperity is stuffed with 300 human marines and enough breaching equipment to crack a moon, Jackson said with a grim smile. And that it's being piloted by a navigation AI with no sense of self-preservation, Marcus added. Phase 2. All ships, execute randomized jump pattern Echo 7. What happened next would have given any council admiral a heart attack. Marcus's fleet didn't jump in formation. They didn't coordinate timing. Each ship jumped independently, using unsafe routes that passed dangerously close to the outpost's gravity well. The Krixothi defense AI had been programmed to handle council tactics, organized fleet movements, coordinated assault patterns, logical attack vectors. It had no idea what to do with 20 ships appearing at random intervals from random directions, some of them emerging from jumps that violated every safety protocol in existence. Defiant entering combat range, Jackson announced. Shields at maximum. Weapons hot. Don't fire, Marcus ordered. All ships, execute pattern Insanity 3. His fleet began moving erratically. Ships broke formation. Some accelerated directly at the outpost, then veered off at the last second. Others flew in spirals. A few appeared to be running away, only to loop back. There was no pattern, no coordination, no sense. The Krixothi are trying to lock targeting solutions, Torres reported. Their AI can't prioritize. We're breaking their prediction algorithms. Their fleet is breaking formation, Jackson said with disbelief. They're confused. The Krixothi warships, so perfectly organized moments before, were splitting apart trying to address threats from every direction. Their tactical AI was designed to counter logical attacks. This wasn't logical. This was chaos. Prosperity has docked, Torres announced. Marines are breaching. Inside the outpost, 300 humans in powered armor were doing what humans did best, close-quarters mayhem. The Krixothi had sophisticated defense protocols for repelling boarding actions. None of them accounted for humans using shaped charges to breach walls instead of doors, or dropping through ventilation shafts, or just smashing through everything in their path. Now, Marcus said. All ships, weapons free. Target their command ship. His mismatched fleet, still flying in apparent chaos, suddenly coordinated their fire on a single target. The Krixothi flagship, trying to reorganize its scattered forces, took concentrated fire from 7 different weapon types it had never been hit by simultaneously. Its shields, calibrated to counter council weapons, couldn't adapt fast enough. The flagship broke apart in silence. Their fleet is retreating, Jackson said, amazed. They're actually retreating. Marines have secured the outpost control center, Torres reported. They're lowering the shields. Sir, total time elapsed, 4 hours. Marcus allowed himself to breathe. 4 hours to take a fortress that had stood for 8 years. Around the bridge, his crew was silent, processing what they'd just accomplished. Log it, Marcus said. Battle of Meridian. Victory achieved through violation of approximately 47 tactical doctrines, 32 safety protocols, and general common sense. The council is going to have questions, Jackson said. Let them ask, Marcus said. We have 16 more systems to liberate. And now the Krixothi know we're coming. But they don't know how. Word of Meridian spread through the fleet channels like wildfire. A human commander had taken an impregnable fortress in 4 hours using broken ships and chaos tactics. The council's response was measured silence. They didn't praise Marcus, but they didn't stop him either. The Krixothi response was more direct. They sent assassins. Marcus was reviewing tactical data in his quarters when Jackson burst in. Sir, we have a problem. Security just caught a Krixothi infiltrator 3 decks below. They're interrogating it now, but The ship shuddered. Alarms screamed. That was an internal explosion, Torres's voice crackled over comms. Deck 7, near the reactor core. It's a diversion, Marcus said, reaching for his sidearm. There's another one. In the ship. Close. The lights cut out. Emergency lighting cast red shadows across his quarters. Jackson activated her wrist shield, a shimmering energy barrier. If they're after you specifically. The ceiling exploded. A Krixathi warrior dropped through, all chitinous armor and plasma blades. They moved with terrifying speed, trained assassins who'd killed hundreds of targets. Marcus Dove left as plasma seared the air where he'd been standing. Jackson's shield absorbed a strike meant to decapitate her. The Krixathi was fast, but humans trained for close combat had one advantage: they were used to fighting dirty. Marcus grabbed a chair and threw it. Not at the Krixathi, at the window. The reinforced glass cracked. Atmosphere began venting. The Krixathi's armor automatically sealed, but that moment of distraction was enough. Jackson's neural stunner caught it in the side. The assassin fell, paralyzed but alive. Marcus hit the emergency seal, stopping the atmosphere loss. Get it to interrogation. I want to know everything. Over the next week, 3 more assassination attempts failed. The Krixathi were adapting, learning that killing Marcus wouldn't stop his fleet. His tactics had spread. Other commanders were starting to use elements of chaos theory in their operations. Sir, we have a situation, Crystalise reported, their crystalline form flickering with concern. The Council has sent an observer. Admiral Thexcorin is arriving within the hour. Marcus met the Admiral in the Defiance war room. The massive Varanthi looked older than Marcus remembered, worn down by centuries of war. Commander Vale, Thexcorin said. You have taken 4 systems in 3 weeks. The Council is impressed. Also concerned. Concerned that I'm succeeding. Concerned that your methods are spreading, the Admiral said carefully. Other commanders are attempting to replicate your tactics. The results have been mixed. Several fleets suffered heavy casualties attempting maneuvers their crews weren't prepared for. Marcus nodded slowly. Chaos only works if you understand what you're doing. You can't just throw away the rulebook and hope for the best. Yet that is precisely what you appear to be doing. No, Marcus said, bringing up a tactical display. I'm using the rulebook. I just know which parts the Krixathi have memorized. Every successful tactic I've used has been based on sound strategic principles. I'm just applying them in ways no one expects. He pointed to the Battle of Meridian. Random jumps. That was calculated risk assessment. The Krixathi had to commit resources to multiple threat vectors. The freighter gambit. Classic Trojan horse strategy, it's been used for thousands of years. I just bet they'd forgotten humans would use it because the Council considers it dishonorable. And the chaos of your attack patterns? Psychology, Marcus said. The Krixathi rely on AI prediction algorithms. Create enough uncertainty and their decision-making breaks down. It's not random, it's controlled unpredictability. Thexcorin's sensory stalks drooped thoughtfully. You are saying that your tactics could be taught. Systematized. Eventually. But right now, my advantage is that the Krixathi don't understand what I'm doing. Every battle teaches them. I need to win this campaign before they adapt. You have taken 4 systems, the Admiral said. 13 remain. 3 months left in your 6-month deadline. The next systems are more heavily fortified. The Krixathi are redeploying their fleet to counter you specifically. Marcus smiled. Good. Let them commit resources to defending against me. That's resources they're not using elsewhere. Admiral, how is the main front? Stable. For the first time in decades, we are not losing ground. The Krixathi are distracted. Exactly, Marcus said. Even if I fail, I've bought the council time. But I don't plan to fail. After the admiral departed, Jackson approached. Sir, reconnaissance shows heavy Krixothi fleet concentrations at our next 3 targets. They're learning. They're trying to, Marcus agreed. But they're still thinking like the council. They're fortifying positions, establishing defensive perimeters, deploying by the book. They expect me to attack their strongpoints. Aren't we? Eventually, Marcus said. But first, we're going to do something completely different. Send a message to all ship commanders. Tell them to prepare for Operation Madman's Gambit. Operation Madman's Gambit began with Marcus doing the unthinkable. He surrendered. You want to do what? Jackson stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. Surrender, Marcus repeated calmly. Or appear to. The Defiant, 5 escort ships, and 2,000 crew members will approach Krixothi-held Terminus Station and broadcast surrender terms. They'll destroy us on sight, Torres protested. They'll destroy us if they think it's a trick, Marcus corrected. But what if it isn't? What if we genuinely appear to be a broken fleet, out of supplies, damaged beyond repair, requesting terms of honorable surrender? Crystalise pulsed with agitation. The Krixothi do not take prisoners. Council doctrine is clear on this. Council doctrine, Marcus said. But the Krixothi have been studying human behavior for months now. They know we're unpredictable. They know we do things differently. What if they think taking me alive would be worth more than killing me? An intelligence coup, the human commander who's been humiliating them, ready to reveal his tactics? This is insane, Jackson said, but Marcus could see her working through the logic. The rest of the fleet will stage in the void dark, Marcus continued. Powered down, hidden in the asteroid field. When the Krixothi lower their guard to bring us in. We hit them from within while the fleet hits from without, Jackson finished. Using their own protocols against them. Sir, if this goes wrong, you'll be captured or killed. Then don't let it go wrong. 3 days later, the Defiant limped toward Terminus Station, trailing plasma and broadcasting distress. The Krixothi response was cautious, long-range scans, weapons locked, demands for proof of intent. Marcus provided it. He transmitted tactical data, real data, but carefully curated. Deployments that were out of date. Techniques he'd already moved beyond. Enough truth to be credible, enough misdirection to be useless. They're taking the bait, Torres whispered. 3 Krixothi capital ships moving to intercept. They're forming an escort pattern. Steady, Marcus said. His heart hammered, but his voice remained calm. Everything depended on the next few minutes. The Krixothi ships surrounded them. Tractor beams locked on. The Defiant was being pulled toward the station's docking bay, a massive chamber that could hold 12 ships. Marines, stand by, Marcus ordered on the internal channel. All personnel, prepare for close-quarters combat. The Krixothi were thorough. They scanned every inch of the Defiant. But they were looking for weapons, explosives, traps. They weren't looking for 2,000 humans who'd spent 3 days practicing hand-to-hand combat drills. The docking bay doors closed behind them. Artificial gravity settled. Krixothi soldiers moved in to board. Now, Marcus said. The Defiant's power systems, supposedly damaged beyond repair, roared to full strength. Weapons ports that had appeared welded shut snapped open. At point-blank range, the cruiser opened fire into the docking bay's internal structure. Simultaneously, every airlock blew open. 2,000 humans in combat armor swarmed out, not toward the Krixothi soldiers, but into the station itself. They moved with coordinated chaos, squad tactics mixed with improvisation, following general objectives but adapting in real time. Fleet, execute, Jackson's voice crackled from her position on one of the escort ships. In the void dark, 68 ships powered up simultaneously. They'd been waiting in silence for 3 days, crews in stasis to minimize life sign detection. Now they burned toward Terminus Station at maximum acceleration. The Kriksathi defense fleet was out of position, its capital ships committed to the surrender. Their AI tried to compensate, pulling ships from patrol routes, but Marcus had studied their defensive protocols. He knew exactly which ships they'd pull from where. The human fleet struck those gaps like a surgical knife. Within the station, Marcus's forces had seized the shield control center. The station's defensive barriers flickered and died. All ships, fire at will, Jackson commanded. The battle was brutal but brief. Caught between internal sabotage and external assault, their carefully prepared defensive strategies useless, the Kriksathi forces broke. Some retreated. Others surrendered, a first in the 300-year war. When the smoke cleared, Marcus stood on Terminus Station's command deck, watching Kriksathi prisoners being escorted to holding cells. These weren't humans, they were supposed to fight to the death. That they'd surrendered meant something fundamental had shifted. 5 systems secured, Jackson reported, joining him. 8 to go. 2 months remaining. And the Kriksathi High Command knows they can't predict us anymore, Marcus added. They'll be scrambling, changing strategies, maybe even starting to question their own tactics. You've done more than liberate systems, Crystalise observed, their form pulsing with what might have been pride. You've introduced doubt into their certainty. For a species that has fought with perfect confidence for centuries, that might be the greatest weapon of all. Marcus nodded, but he felt the weight of what came next. The last 8 systems would be the hardest. The Kriksathi wouldn't be caught off guard again. They'd adapt, learn, counter. The war of unpredictability was about to become a war of adaptation. And whoever adapted faster would win. With 6 weeks remaining and 8 systems to go, Marcus faced his greatest challenge yet. The Kriksathi had learned. Their fleets no longer moved in predictable patterns. They'd abandoned rigid doctrine in favor of flexible response. They were, Marcus realized with grudging respect, learning to fight like humans. Sir, intelligence reports are troubling, Jackson said during the command briefing. The Kriksathi have appointed a new field commander. General Kriksvar. They're calling him, the Adaptive. Marcus studied the data. Kriksvar had reorganized the remaining Kriksathi forces in the outer rim. Instead of fortifying positions, he'd created mobile response fleets. Instead of defending systems, he was preparing to strike at Marcus's supply lines. He's thinking like I do, Marcus said quietly. He's learned from every engagement. This won't be about chaos versus order anymore. This will be a contest of who can outthink whom. The next 3 weeks were brutal. Marcus took 2 systems, but at heavy cost. The Kriksathi struck back, raiding human supply convoys with guerrilla tactics that would have made Terran insurgents proud. The misfit fleet, so effective at overwhelming rigid defenses, found itself matched by an enemy that could adapt in real time. We've lost 12 ships, Torres reported after the Battle of Sigma Station. Crew casualties at 30%. We're running low on ammunition, reactor cores, and medical supplies. And we still have 6 systems to take in 3 weeks, Jackson added. Sir, maybe it's time to request reinforcements from the Council. They won't send them, Marcus said. This was always meant to be a test. Besides, what reinforcements could arrive in time? He stared at the strategic display, watching Kriksvar's forces maneuver. The Kriksathi general was brilliant, copying human tactics while retaining the technological advantages of his species. Marcus was fighting a mirror image of himself. There's one thing he can't copy, Marcus said slowly. Sir. Desperation, Marcus said. Kriksvar is learning to fight like a human. But humans don't just fight unpredictably for tactical advantage. We fight unpredictably because when our backs are against the wall, we'll try anything. We'll sacrifice ourselves. We'll take risks that no rational species would take. He turned to his staff. Gather every ship captain. Tell them I'm proposing something that violates not just military doctrine, but common sense. Tell them it might fail. Tell them it will definitely cost lives. Then ask them if they're willing to try anyway. 2 days later, 51 ships, all that remained of Marcus's fleet, gathered in the void dark for one final operation. Marcus addressed them over open channels. For 300 years, the Council and the Krixothi have fought by rules. Honorable combat. Strategic doctrine. The slow, grinding war of attrition. We broke those rules. Honorable combat. Strategic doctrine. The slow, grinding war of attrition. We broke those rules. We won because we were willing to be unpredictable, to take risks, to fight in ways no rational species would fight. He paused. The Krixothi have learned from us. General Krixvar is as unpredictable as I am. As adaptable. As willing to take risks. We've taught them how to fight like humans. So now we need to do something even they won't expect. We're going to attack their homeworld. The silence was deafening. Then Jackson spoke, "Sir, their homeworld isn't even in the outer rim. It's deep in Krixothi space, defended by 3 full fleets. We'd never make it through." "Exactly," Marcus said. "Which is why they won't expect it. Krixvar has pulled forces from everywhere to counter us here. The homeworld is defended, yes, but not as heavily as usual. And more importantly, it's a psychological target. If the Krixothi believe their home is threatened, every ship in the outer rim will redeploy to defend it. Leaving the remaining systems undefended," Crystallis said, understanding dawning. While we what? We cannot actually take the homeworld. You said yourself, 3 fleets. We don't need to take it, Marcus said. We need to threaten it. Make them think we might take it. Force them to choose between defending their home and holding their conquest. This is a suicide mission, someone said over the channel. Yes, Marcus agreed. It probably is. I won't order anyone to come. This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to stand down, do so now with my respect and gratitude. No ships powered down. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Thank you, he said simply. All ships, plot jump coordinates. We leave in 1 hour. The jump to Krixothi space was the longest of Marcus's life. 51 ships, battered and undersupplied, heading into the heart of enemy territory. It was madness. It was desperation. It was exactly the kind of thing humans were famous for. They emerged in the Krixothi home system to find it defended by 2 full fleets, still overwhelming odds, but better than 3. Krixvar had indeed pulled some forces to the outer rim. All ships, execute echo pattern, Marcus ordered. His fleet scattered, moving erratically, broadcasting attack vectors toward the homeworld. They fired long-range missiles, most of which were decoys, but the Krixothi didn't know that. The Krixothi fleets reacted with precision, moving to intercept. But Marcus could see the hesitation in their movements. They were torn between engaging his fleet and protecting their homeworld. Sir, we're getting communications from the outer rim, Torres said. Krixothi fleets are jumping away. They're abandoning their positions. They're coming home, Jackson said. It's working. Signal all remaining council forces in the outer rim, Marcus ordered. Tell them to retake those systems now, while the Krixothi are absent. For 3 days, Marcus's fleet danced with death in Krixothi space. They fought running battles, never committing fully, always threatening the homeworld without actually attacking it. Ships were lost. The Defiant took critical damage. But they held. On the 4th day, Admiral Thexcorin's voice crackled over the comms, Commander Vale, the outer rim is secure. All 17 systems have been liberated. You've done it. Then it's time to go home, Marcus said. All ships, jump out. They limped back to council space with 38 ships remaining. The Defiant had to be towed the last 2 light years. But when they arrived at Nexus Prime, the entire Council fleet was waiting. Not to arrest them. To salute them. Admiral Thexcorin met Marcus in the docking bay. "You were given 6 months and broken ships," the Admiral said. "You accomplished in 4 months what we could not do in 300 years. I didn't.